Hi, I'm Richard Weiss, former president of the Explorers Club, and I'd like to welcome you to the Explorers Club 50 lecture series. If you're new to the club and to the lecture series, I'd like to welcome you and tell you a little about ourselves and also about the Explorers Club 50. First of all, the Explorers Club was established in 1904. At that time, by a bunch of guys trying to get to the North and South Pole. And since that time, our members have covered just about every corner of the Earth. In fact, when you walk into the lobby of our historic headquarters on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, there is a plaque on the wall that perhaps summarizes it best. Our members have been the first to step foot on the North Pole, first on the South Pole, first to stand upon Mount Everest, the highest point, the first to go to the lowest point in the ocean, and also our members were the first to go to the moon. Other notable explorers have been Theodore Roosevelt and Jane Goodall, and just about every notable explorer of the 21st century. Now, about the Explorers Club 50. The slogan is 50 people who are changing the world that the world needs to know about. And I'll give you a little genesis of how that started. Last spring, during the beginning of the pandemic, one of our members said to me, "You've got to check out this performance or this video called Earthrise by a young poet named Amanda Gorman." I watched it, and it was about the Apollo 8 mission, which were our members. And I was blown away by how she described Earth, the environment, and the fragility of our planet. We started a short correspondence and became pen pals. She became a member. But I also thought, how many other Amanda Gormans are out there in the world? In fact, when I got together with the chair of this program, Joe Rohde, who you'll be meeting in just a few minutes, we got together and we said, how do we want to describe exploration in the future? And if we're truly a global exploration society, then our club has to represent the world as we see it. And not just in terms of how people look, but also how people describe the earth and the sky and just about everything in science. So, how did we choose the EC50 honorees? 50 people who are changing the world that the world needs to know about. The first thing Joe Rohde said to me was that if you take a problem and you approach it with the same people, you are always going to get the same type of result. So he immediately said, we wanted as diverse a judging panel, people who could look at the world through a different narrative and lens and be able to come together with some sort of conclusion. So he put together a group that was from all over the world. The next thing we had to do is have our membership give us people that they have met along the way that were doing incredible things that maybe weren't recognized for their work. We got about 450 nominations. And I have to tell you, they were pretty amazing. We could have gotten an EC 200 out of it. We came out with our top 50 honorees, and the result was nothing less than spectacular. We have people covering all sectors of disciplines from space to paleontology, oceanography. We have Inuit, Native Americans, Sri Lankans, Indians, Africans, and just across the border. But in the meantime, I want you to sit back and enjoy some good old-fashioned storytelling.
Welcome, everybody, to the Explorers Club 50 program. We're starting a whole new series of interviews with spectacular new members who have been brought in this year. And this first episode of Visionaries includes Sunniva Sorby, Wilson Cheung, and Ignacio Oficialdegui, all of whom have done spectacular work in the polar and high altitude regions of the world. So let's just take a look at what they've done, and we'll be back with the conversation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Wai Yin Wilson from Hong Kong. Actually, here is Buffalo Sea in Canadian Arctic, and you can see all the sea ice in here. in the in high Arctic. My lifelong mission is to join into the frontier of scientific discovery and contribute to our knowledge that unknown in the polar region. For this reason, I dedicate my whole life to map and estimate the glacier volume change in the wetter and warmer scenario in high Arctic region. My main research focuses on estimate and actively monitor the glacier and ice cap spatial distribution and temporal dynamic in Canadian Arctic, especially in Baffin Island and Bylot Island. In this regard, partnership with local Inuit community can help us to advance glaciological knowledge in regional, as they spend generation to generation to observe this kind of changing in high Arctic region. By learning how the Inuit community to read the landscape as well as facing this frontier of climate changing, I hope that such knowledge can offer a new perspective of our environment in this region. My deep-seated interest in study ice is not limited on the Earth, but also in Moon and Mars, as well as all the ice body in the whole solar system. More than that, I am a fellow of International Arctic Scientific Committee, as well as Scientific Committee on Antarctica Research, specially focused on humanity and social science expertise group to coordinate and promote the scientific discovery in both polar regions. By facilitating international and multidisciplinary cooperation, and we strongly believe that we can bring a positive impact in our society as well as in our environment. Besides that, in order to draw the public awareness of the fast melting Alpine glacier in Europe, which may not exist in 2050, I aim to climb all the 82 4,000 peaks in the Alps with Alpine style. In other words, it means that unsupported by my own self to summit all 82 4,000 peaks. Additionally, I believe that educating and inspiring next generation of scientific discovery on or beyond our Earth is very essential for human discovery in next generation. Therefore, I have led a group of young alpinists and environmentalists to set up two non-profit organizations. One is called Asian Youth Alpine Mentorship Program, to cultivate the young aspiration alpinists and polar explorer to discover the unknown in the high altitude and the polar region as well. The second organization is called EcoBus. Our aim is to promote minimum impact on our environment. We're using public funding to bring our next generation as well as community member to go outside to reconnect to nature and to rebuild up the relationship between nature and us. Those programs have worked with over 1,000 young individuals across Asia to challenge themselves with new opportunity and encourage their understanding and awareness of the fast-changing environment and the climate changing. And I really hope that my work and my research can bring a positive impact for our fast-changing environment. Okay, thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, my name is Ignacio Oficialdegui and I feel very well today here with you being presented as a visionary within the exploration world. Usually one knows that is a visionary when in many places you are not welcome, you are annoying, or when the people don't understand you. This means that you are breaking some paradigm, and many times this is very uncomfortable for those anchored in the conventional way of doing things. I have been in love with mountains, seas, rivers, wind, and exploration all my life. Many years ago I envisioned and I dreamed that wind could help us to change the global energy model as an alternative to the conventional fossil fuels. At that moment, wind was very unknown and practically uncharted. This situation led me to spend 25 years exploring the wind in the 6 continents, in the most remote areas of more than 50 countries. Today, we are in full energy transition and I lead one of the best teams of wind explorers in the world. What is more, back in year 2000, in an exploration expedition in Greenland, I met a genius called Ramon Larramendi. He had already envisioned a new model to explore the most extreme and unknown territories on Earth. He had dreamed that it could be possible to navigate on the ice using the wisdom of the Inuit people and the power of the wind. I got totally captured by this idea and I rapidly shared this vision with him, becoming one of his mentees and companion in polar exploration. The magnitude of the exploration challenge here is so great that most of the people we meet in our presentations do not even clearly know about where this is taking place. And a significant amount of the ones that know do not feel comfortable with our findings. This is a good signal. Most of the human activity, even today, takes place in the island and shores of the northernmost corner of the Antarctic Peninsula, well off the Antarctic cycle. The whole peninsula represents only around 3.5% of the surface of the ice of the continent, whereas its interior, the Inster Plateau, has remained mostly pristine and explored due to its harsh conditions and isolation, with a surface almost twice the size of mainland USA, with a layer of up to 4,000 meters thick of ice that represents about 7.5% of the land surface of the Earth. It contains around 70% of the fresh water of the planet. Another perspective, comparing with North America, scientific basis of Antarctic Peninsula will be in Miami, the South Pole will be in Hudson Bay, and the opposite coast of the Antarctica will be in Ellesmere. The rectangle represents the surface of the eastern plateau of Antarctica. And here is the vision: the polar wind highways and the wind sled. The hypothesis of Ramon was that the power to move across the continent is there, that we don't need to import it, and that is in the form of wind. I have been very happy collaborating with him in the evolution of this idea during the last 20 years. We first sketched what we call the wind highways, the main wind paths that will allow crossing and going around most of the continent. Then secondly, we outlined the wind secondary roads. In this case, wind and surface conditions will not be so favorable, but will allow to explore and connect some other relevant places in the continent. And Ramon was also thinking about the vehicle. Most logistic solutions are very expensive and environmentally unfriendly. I don't need to tell you. We have worked very hard trying to design a respectful alternative to all this. Wind sled is an ingenious invention made by Ramon based on his broad experience with the Inuit culture and the very remote polar regions. It basically consists of a sled made of pieces of wood joined together with little ropes. Then you put a tent on the top of it and a kite that is steered manually with a simple pulley system attached to the runners. This kite is positioned up to more than 250 meters above ground level and it's got a size of 5 to 250 square meters. The project has validated the wind highways in Greenland in 8 major expeditions. We have also validated them in Antarctica with 3 main expeditions. And well, wind sled is a mobile laboratory. Using uniquely the power of the wind, wind sled has carried out scientific works for prestigious organizations like the European Space Agency, the Complutense University of Madrid, the Climate Change Institute at the University of Maine, among many others. Ice core collecting, microorganisms sampling, pollution detection, satellite networks validation, meteorological data collection are some of the examples. Sled is able to carry up to 6 persons and more than 2 tons of weight for thousands of kilometers. We have already navigated around 25,000 kilometers, which are 15,000 miles, in 10 major expeditions, with an autonomy of up to 65 days. Today, pristine polar territories have more value than ever. Ultra-pure exploration is a fact. We have the opportunity of reading the past without disturbing it. Our strongest motivation is to make other explorers see these invisible highways powered by invisible fuels that make Antarctica and Greenland happy to receive us, to unveil their secrets. Later in 2023, Sled might become the first sustainable, mobile, international scientific base in Antarctica, hopefully under the auspice of the Spanish Polar Committee. If you have your own vision, share it and join us to break with conventional solutions and let us change the way we explore our world. Are you happy or uncomfortable watching this?
Hello, I'm Sunniva Sorby, co-founder of a project and platform called Hearts in the Ice. I can be called many things, but what I would really like to be known for is actually quite simple. A woman who is standing up for what she believes in. And this is why I'm calling the story I'm about to share the power of collaboration, community, and courage to problem solve the climate crisis. So I'll start with courage. I've spent over 25 years moving around in many physical ways, skied across Greenland, skied across King George Island in Antarctica, and then skied to the South Pole with a fellow Explorer Club member, Anne Bancroft, as the expedition leader. I'll never forget when we returned from that trip, Anne remarking in a documentary that she feared that I was going to fall into a hypothermic sleep. I was very, very sick on that expedition. I was 30 years old, and it was probably the first time that I actually could redefine what the word courage and vulnerability is, and what strength really looks like. It's not reaching the top of a summit or skiing across an ice cap. It actually is the willingness to admit a weakness and a willingness to ask for help. So that became the very start for me to redefine what it actually means to admit that, you know, we are not just full of grit and tenacity, that we actually need each other to solve problems. So now I'm going to fast forward a little bit and tell you about a woman that I met in 2016 who actually was my polar opposite, Hilde Fodenström, who lives and has lived up in Svalbard for over 25 years. And about a month after we met, she shared that she had a dream of overwintering right where that little red arrow is pointing. It's a location 140 kilometers from the nearest town. And it was her dream to overwinter in this cabin. And she asked if I would do this with her. And I, let me think about that. The answer was not a resounding yes from me. This was a cabin, an old trapper's cabin built for beluga hunting, no running water, no electricity. And we were 87 miles or 140 kilometers away from the nearest neighbor. And to do an overwintering actually meant spending over 3 months in complete darkness, a darkness that most of us have never seen. It's when the sun dips below the horizon more than 5 degrees and doesn't come back for another 3 months. So I was in a very secure position with a polar operator, and the thought of uprooting was not actually first and foremost on my mind. But then you have a problem. You've got two women together, stewing around the fact that we've both experienced a tremendous amount of change in our precious polar regions. And we knew that we had connections to a lot of scientists and a lot of people in different industries. And so what if we actually collaborated and created a little bit of a zipper between us and all of these key stakeholders? Could we use this trapper's cabin as our base camp to share awareness around what's happening in the polar regions. And that's how Hearts in the Ice was born. We are now in our 4th year. And this idea for an overwintering was a great sort of adventure and expedition, but that wasn't the whole purpose of staying at Bumsaboo. We worked really hard with Kit Jackson, who is a founder of Strategy Together, to say and ask the questions: what are our goals? What's our message? And what will we deliver to our partners and our community? Of what value, actually, will our experience of 9 months overwintering in this cabin be? And of what relevance to other people? So we had clearly defined those goals. And there we were in this remote location with solar and wind to power our communication needs. We were closer to the lowest band of the aurora at 100 kilometers above the horizon line. We were closer to that than we were to the town of Longyearbyen, 140 kilometers away. So we had 2 goals, and one of them was citizen science. We collected data and observations for 9 international science projects as certified citizen scientists. They actually call us now extreme citizen scientists, which, and for the reason for that is we recorded a rocket launch for NASA to study the aurora. We had over 100 polar bear encounters. We collected dozens of phytoplankton samples and ice core samples, and we were effectively the bridge between science and the scientists and the public's understanding of what the science will tell us. We collaborated with these researchers to understand why what we were collecting was even relevant. I mean, phytoplankton, these tiny microscopic little algae that you can barely see, are responsible for more than 50 to 70% of the oxygen in the atmosphere, more than the rainforest. So this was a very powerful mechanism for us to share with the kids. Our next goal was the education outreach. We used a satellite phone from our little hub, Bumsaboo, or that cabin, and we connected with over 100,000 youth from around the world. And our goal was pretty simple. We wanted to take them out of climate despair and into hope and inspiration. And what better person to help us with that message than Dr. Jane Goodall, who was our final speaker after 19 months at Bumsaboo. So now I'd like to give you, because it's very hard for most of us to imagine a remote place like space or the Arctic, unless you're taken there. So I'm going to take you there now with a short 3-minute little sizzle reel created by Imagine Entertainment with all of our footage. We're actually going to, they're going to create an IMAX documentary on our project. And the reason they think it's a very interesting message is that it's not about Hilda and Sunniva. It's really about the power of collaboration and community to inspire change. So I'll start with that now. So the question is, what did we give up? What did we forfeit to come here?
What didn't we give up? Our whole life.
We gave up our jobs, shopping, showers.
Our family and friends.
Make a wish. Hey, this is us.
Hi.
And we don't ever go anywhere without Etra, our 4-legged friend.
Da går vi inn I mørketida med bjørn rundt veggene, Sunniva.
So today is March 9th, and it's the first time that I see the sun since October. Oh, I have to open up the window. Oh, look at this. There it is. We're out here on a lunch break.
It's not hard to understand why, we want to protect these really precious polar regions. I'm sharing this quote right here, which was actually shared with me by a very powerful woman called Sila Wat Cloutier. She wrote a book called The Right to Be Cold. And she's been fighting for Indigenous rights for over 25 years. And I think despite the reality of this quote, it gives me many reasons for hope, actually. And that is what's next. We've done something. We spent 19 months and 14,000 hours together, but who's counting? So what's next? And I think what's next for all of us as explorers is collaboration, inclusivity, compassion, curiosity, and creativity, so that we can actually shine a light on the real problems that we're facing today. And I think that storytelling is a very powerful way to do that. But storytelling through the eyes of citizen scientists, as we are doing with Hearts in the Ice, which actually has a power to connect all of us and to deepen our collective understanding of the true community scientists, which are the Indigenous and communities around the world. After we spent 19 months living closely with our natural world and the storms and a wildlife, we have a great understanding for the people who live that way all the time. So if we want to understand how to actually deepen our understanding of what's happening in the world, we need to put the funding and the tools and the power back in the hands of the local communities who have been and are on the front lines of impacts from change. And we're working really hard to help protect what they love and now what we collectively love. So there's a question to ask for all of us. What responsibility or what role do I even have in this climate crisis and sixth mass extinction we're actually bearing witness to? Climate change is not a spectator sport, but at the end of the day, it does always start with each of us. So I'm going to share now where Hearts in the Ice is today and what we stand for. And it's fairly simple and straightforward. 4 very quick things. One is citizen science. We're the communication bridge between science and the general public to understand what is the science telling us. We almost don't need more data collection. We need more understanding of what the science means. Second, we're supporting solutions that actually working towards an energy shift, both the solutions and the companies. Third, we're serving as polar ambassadors to protect sea ice and all the peoples and all the wildlife that depend on it for their livelihood. And the fourth point is we are, lastly, our youth and education outreach with our monthly calls to fold in the Indigenous experts and the youth to better understand what's really going on in the front lines of change in the Arctic. And of course, we have partnerships. We are really proud of the collaborations we have with the Jane Goodall Institute, with Hütterduten, Canada Goose, Tomorrow's Air, and Polar Bears International. And I share that because, we are just all working together to sort of highlight the same message. And that is that each of us are extremely important and relevant. And we need everybody to actually participate in this right now. And I'll share one last quick little story about some amazing project that's coming out on February 27th, 2023, which is International Polar Bear Day. Because COVID came and the scientists could not travel in the field, Hilde and I were given GPS coordinates from Jonorsh, from the Norwegian Polar Institute, to find this particular bear, N26131, and see if in fact she had given birth. And I won't give away the whole story, but all that to say that she had given birth. And then we saw her, not just the first year, but we saw her the second year, and spent an entire day in the field watching this beautiful scene sort of unfold in front of our eyes with her and her two little cubs in tow. So I'm going to end there, and I do want to share one last thing, and it's a quote that I feel is very powerful from Buckminster Fuller. So permit me right now. Never forget that you are one of a kind. Never forget that if there weren't any need for you and all of your uniqueness to be here on this earth, you wouldn't be here in the first place. And never forget how overwhelming life's challenges and problems seem to be. Never forget that one person can make a difference in the world. And in fact, it's always because of one person that all the changes that matter in the world actually come about. So let's all keep being that one person. Thank you very much.
The title of this session being Visionaries, I kind of wanted to start there because obviously each of you as a scientist, as a researcher, are driven by a kind of desire for knowledge or logic, but visionary suggests something else, a kind of passion, a drive, a desire, something that transcends logic itself. So I wanted to start here. Each of you are drawn to and work in profoundly extreme environments. And each of you, I presume, are driven to these places by some vision, some sense, some drive that puts you there. And I wanted to start there by just talking about what is it about these cold, frankly, in many cases, unlivable environments, far, far from where human species was meant to be. And in most cases, places that had no indigenous human occupation, because they're literally unlivable, driven to be in these places, and what makes you want that. And I'm going to start with you, Wilson.
Yeah, for me, actually, my life mission is really want to reach the frontier of unknown. What does it mean the frontier of unknown? It means that I want to become the first person to make a mistake, or the first person to question what we need to load this area. And that's why I'm pretty sure that in both polar regions is a sort of frontier of us that we don't know that much very well. For instance, Antarctica, the first humankind to reach the South Pole is less than 120 years. I can say like this. So we don't know that much this area very well. So that's why I choose my PhD and my research in both polar regions, especially for the ice, because I believe that, for instance, the climate changing will impact the ice for sure. But at the same time that the knowledge we study the ice can transfer to the space exploration, which is transferred back to our Earth system as well, because we don't know that much about Antarctica ice as well as Arctic region ice as well. That's why I really want to dedicate my life to push this frontier, to reach this unknown, and then we can answer this question for humankind.
Great. I'm going to go to you next, Sunniva.
Well, that is, Joe, that's a great question. When I was 10 years old, I actually dreamt of going to the moon. So be careful what you ask for. When I went to the South Pole, which was in 1993 on a 2.5-month slog with a 100-kilo sled behind me, you know, to go to these icy, barren regions is to really know yourself. I think that the polar regions, for me, have really stripped away the layers of who I thought I was, only to reveal who I really am. And what that means more specifically and how it's relevant to other people is you don't go to these places to conquer. You really go to have an experience that transcends an experience that we might have in other places in our world that are more domesticated and maybe more populated, right? We know that the polar regions, except for the Arctic, are full of indigenous people, but Antarctica, you'll never meet anyone that says, hello, I'm from Antarctica. So these places, for me, have been the best library ever to understand how powerful we humans are in both the creation of things and also the destruction. Because so much change is happening in both the North and the South as we know it today. And I have really come to understand sort of what courage and strength means. I thought, born in Norway, I thought that was like summiting, at the top of a peak or skiing across an ice cap. But real courage and real strength is our willingness to understand that we all need help and that we all need each other in this big equation. And I think these remote regions of the Arctic and the Antarctic really do teach us how interconnected we all are as people and as a species. And I find that to be a very profound thing in our world today when so many pursuits seem to be lauded as individual.
That's great. I mean, it's a very interesting idea that the sort of isolation and introspection of an extreme environment would lead you to the perception of community and engagement and involvement. That's very interesting. Ignacio, I have to ask you the same question because I know that your drive is really quite passionate. I've had discussions with you, offline. So again, this same question, what is the drive that puts you in such places?
Well, they have like two main drivers. One of them is the main one is curiosity. And well, because how can you bear the call of something that is invisible, like the wind, that is so powerful that you know that is there, but you don't know much about it. So that is a call that I couldn't avoid to follow. And above all, if you go to the polar regions, if you enter the middle of the eastern plateau of Antarctica, where nobody has ever lived and where not even life is possible, that's something that attracts you so much that you cannot avoid it. And that's the main feeling I have with this region. And then also I have the passion to try to change the world. And that's one of the reasons I saw in the wind one of the keys for that. On one hand, in my professional career within the energy world, trying to use this wind for the energy transition, to get rid of the conventional sources of energy, and then also in order to find a solution for the logistics in the middle of Antarctica, in the middle of Greenland, where we have so much to explore and we shouldn't pollute it. We have to find new ways of doing it.
I'm going to stay with you for just a second because you used a phrase in one of the things I saw that you had written about being like a wind prospector, like a wind pioneer. And I wanted just to hear you talk a little bit more about this searching for wind. It's really an interesting idea.
Yeah, for that you have to go back to 25 years ago. At that point, we didn't know much about wind. Well, actually, just the meteorologists, they knew a little bit, but I can tell you now it's easy to say that they didn't know anything compared with what we know now. And another point that happened there is that started the wind energy industry. And with the companies, in general, the society saw a source of richness, a source of energy there. So we realized that we didn't know where the wind is, how strong it is, how to measure it, how to calculate which is the energy that contains, and how to use it. And that was a very great challenge. We were just a few people that we were like pioneers looking for that wind, looking we started looking for the formation in the vegetation, you know, in remote places of the world, trying to find the best sites, the best spots to use the energy of that wind. And that point was really so challenging, so interesting. How to find the ways of measuring it, how to convert that into mathematics and into energy and all that stuff, and to travel and travel, trying to find these spots all over the world.
I'm going to go back to Sunniva for a second for a specific reason. All of us who mount expeditions, very much similar to art. I'm also an artist, right? People see a finished work of art and they marvel at the amazing, you know, whatever talent capacity you have to draw this thing, sculpt this thing, without really considering the vast amount of previous preparation to get to the moment when this thing happens. Expeditions are similar in that they draw attention, they're visible, they're dynamic, they're dramatic, but they really are the culmination of a lot of preparation, right? In your case, you prepared for something that then turned out to be something very different. And I'd like to hear you just talk about the relationship between preparation and then the improvisation of a viable response.
Yes, great question, Joe. It's so interesting. I was what I call minding my own business about in 2016 when I met a woman who had the dream of doing an overwintering in the Arctic, which means effectively spending at least 3 months in complete and total darkness because the sun dips below the horizon more than 5 degrees and you don't see it. And so I was in a full-time job, very happy, comfortable in many respects, maybe too comfortable. And when I met Hilde, she shared her passionate love of the Arctic, and I shared a passionate love for the Antarctic. And, you know, adventure is no stranger to me, but at this point in my life, it had to have some relevance to the bigger picture. And so the relevance is we created Hearts in the Ice, and we wanted to be the bridge between science and the scientists and the public's understanding of the relevance that might have to them. So our plan was in 2019 to have a ship drop us off with years of preparation in terms of logistics, support for communication, for food, for equipment. We holed up in a little trapper's cabin with no running water, no electricity, and all of you share a love for, you know, the extreme and being untethered by the normal comforts. And so we had to bring in a solar panel, and we had to bring in a windmill, and powered everything alternatively. And our plan was to be there for 9 months. And then as the world knew it, it became upended with COVID. And then we found out in March of 2020 that there's no ship coming in to pick you up. And so we sat there. We were actually very sad for the entire world because it was spinning off its axis with COVID and all the lockdowns. And so we rode our snowmobiles into the town of Longyearbyen, 8 hours, collected more supplies, came back in, and decided to spend an entire other year at this little trapper's cabin. Because the big question, Joe, for us was, how could we stay relevant? You know, when the world is paralyzed with COVID and we're in the middle of nowhere trying to build community and collaborate with scientists and build story. And we felt, oddly enough, that being way up there in the Arctic was far more entertaining, if I can put it that way, for people from a story aspect. And so we used our platform and this crisis that was COVID by extending our stay, and it turned into 19 months. And the media picked up on it because we chose to self-isolate before self-isolation was a household word.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about this thing that you did happening at the perfect time when people could empathize with it, right? They knew what isolation felt like, not an abstraction. I think that's because so often kind of the core of the experiences explorers have are hard to communicate because they are so unique. Which does, I want to go to you, Ignacio, for a second, because just for a description of the life on this sledge that is, of course, it's, being propelled by the wind across the ice, but it's also banging along as you travel at really high speeds. And the same thing about preparation, and then reaction to the reality of what's actually happening when you do this. And I know some of the things you've done are probably record-breaking in multiple ways. So preparation, and then dealing with the reality of really being there.
No, I would say preparation is just terrible. It takes us years of preparation, using all our spare time, nights and weekends, trying to, above all, the logistics, as Sunniva was saying, that is terrible to find the logistics to enter and to come out from Antarctica. Above all, if you go to the interior, to the continental part of it, and then to make a risk assessment of and think about all the things that can happen there, and you need to go with a solution, because you are going to be totally isolated in the middle of the continental Antarctica without any possibility of help, and in very, very extreme conditions. And that it takes a lot of reflection and thinking. But even if you think about all possible risks, you are doing very pure exploration. You are entering an area where nobody has ever been, where you don't know how the human body is going to behave. You might find, I don't know, it was so unexplored that you might find crevasses, fields of the size of Spain, because you don't know, things like those, or terrible storms that you don't know whether you're going to bear. And but so what I mean is that even though you make a big preparation, you are going to find many unexpected things. So that's something that you have to go ready to cope with. And then the sled, well, the very big difference that I always try to transmit to the people is that in this type of expeditions, first of all, it's like somehow to go in a boat, because you are going to sail, but instead of on the middle of the ocean, you're in the middle of the ice. You are surrounded by ice up to the infinite. It's total. You can see all the time during weeks and weeks and weeks the curve of the earth of ice. In the same way that like in the ocean. But the big difference is that from the very first second you arrive there, you are cold. You are fighting against the cold because you are outdoors, you are outside. Just there is a little tent where you can protect yourself. The rest of the time you are always out, and the temperatures are all the time between -30 and -50 degrees below zero. So you never rest, you never relax. You are always working because you are all the time navigating. You have to navigate or to work in the scientific work, or to cook, or to get water, or to fix this or to fix that. So always there's a total activity on that. And then you have what you said, you have to sail, you are moving. So that is also an extra danger, because you are moving with a vehicle that moves up to 2 tons of weight. So it's not a toy. And then there are a lot of bumps because the surface is not flat. So you have to live all the time like this. You have to learn how to eat, how to drink, how to make things bumping and sleeping, bumping and all. So the experience of exploration, the feeling of being in a totally inhospitable environment is total. So that's the bad, but also the good thing of it.
I recall you mentioning in another conversation that you and your colleagues, despite the fact that you were just eating as much as you could and this rich nutrient food and fatty food and fuel, we're losing weight at a really frightening rate as you reach the end of this journey. And that is, I assume, attributed to this constant high level of demand.
So you're 24 hours for weeks, just trying to keep the temperature of the body. So it's burning and burning calories. I remember in the first expedition, we learned to drink, because you have a process of learning. The body has to learn to drink olive oil, and it was like diesel. We were drinking it like a engine, like a diesel engine. And at the end, we were not able to drink it all the time because the body was not allowing. But you had the feeling of having like some kind of boiler or some kind of engine inside you, just generating heat all the time, the whole day. And it's and then even though we were having between 4,000, 5,000 kilocalories per day, we were losing weight. And you lose the muscle, and you feel how the smell of the clothes start smelling like ammonia. That means that you are burning all your proteins, and well, it's really well. It was real exploration. So it was.
Yes. So I'm going to circle back with Wilson on the same issue of preparation compared to the improvisational and realities of experience. And especially because growing up in Hong Kong, I grew up in Hawaii, I don't know what cold is. I still don't really know what cold is, and so there has to be something special, I think, about preparing for a greater distance to prepare to be in a cold and isolated place when you begin your life in a very tropical and densely populated place.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thank you very much for this interesting question. A lot of people ask me this question as well, because I come from Hong Kong as a subtropical boy, but end up to study the ice in both polar region. And actually, according to my experience working in both polar region for 10 years, and our nose actually is a little bit Asian nose is a little bit poor circulation compared with Western people. So we very easy to get frostbite in this area. So that's why this some kind of little bit trick I learned it along the way for this 10-year career. But one thing is I really want to mention about the preparation, especially a subtropical boy in both polar region, is I really need to spend a lot of time to read the book and then to ask a lot of expertise in the field as well, because especially in Hong Kong, not that much people have a real connection between both polar region compared to Western people. Yeah, and that's why I spend a lot of effort in the Canada Arctic as well as in Greenland as well, because I spent at least one winter to live with some Inuit people in Greenland, East Greenland, for learning their hunting way or living style in the winter season, so I can capable enough that to learn how they cope with the cold or extreme environment, which really give me a lot of knowledge, not only the practical knowledge, as well as their own way to think about the landscape, to read the landscape, and connect to the landscape as well, and which can bring me to all the way to the my research in Baffin Island as well. Because in Baffin Island, although it's in Canadian Arctic, but not that much people know where is it. And then some people don't know that they even have a 2 big ice cap in Baffin Island as well. But the indigenous people, it means Inuit people, they do have a lot of knowledge in this area. So consultate or ask them their partnership with them, and we can borrow some knowledge from them from generation to generation, that we can bring more knowledge from traditional knowledge perspective into scientific perspective to advance our unknown, or to answer the question of unknown in this area. So this kind of preparation not only related to equipment, physical, as well as the social content or cultural perspective preparation in order to make all expeditions successful. And I can give you one more example is extreme weather make the preparation is getting more difficult as well. For instance, and last field work season in Pontiac in Canadian Arctic, actually we have 10 days working season in Pontiac. But however, because of the weather changing, we cannot go to the glacier to study at all because the weather changes quite a lot. And that's we need to prepare this kind of extreme weather will happening more often in the future as well.
Part of our desire to go to these places that are so remote is the premise that they are pristine. I'm going away from the complexity, contradiction of the human world to a pristine place. And yet now, these very places, exactly these places, the poles, are responding in some cases more profoundly than anywhere else to human impact. So this is really an emotional question. Like, what does it mean to go to a place that, in a way, your heart wants to be pristine, to find that it is changing, right? And within that change is implicit danger. So I'll start with Sunniva.
Wow, and that is a deeply emotional question. I'd like to think of Hilda and I for 19 months way up in the north, 78 degrees north, as uniquely placed specialists with a lens on the rest of the world, as David Suzuki said, like astronauts from space with the first view of Earth. We were able to shine a light and story around the rest of the world, where all the lines of latitude and longitude converge. And you're right, these are pristine places that are changing before our eyes. In Svalbard, there's plastic marine debris being tossed up on the west shores because of the circumpolar current. Lots of it. I could go on and on about the changes. I'm sure we all could. But what that does to me on a very personal, deeply emotional level is you almost want to shake up the world. You want to shake people awake because, if we are uniquely placed specialists for the 19 months up in the Arctic as we were, what about the hundreds of thousands of uniquely placed specialists that we call the indigenous around the world that have been living 24/7 with these changes, have contributed least to maybe the problem that we're all experiencing? And we've gone away from the wisdom of understanding what is the earth trying to tell us. It's really trying to tell us that we all need to work together in community with one another. We all need to have this sort of collaboration, Joe, where we're all speaking on a linear level and folding in ideas and stories on how we can leverage the collective talent in the room to really come up with a sort of metric or different narrative around what it means to be a problem solver and an explorer today. It doesn't mean the singular approach. It really means that all of us have to work in community. We have to understand the communities who have been experiencing the change. And what it's done to me is I feel on a much deeper level that I understand what it might feel like to feel displaced. Because I've lived without the normal comforts for such a long time that it's gone into the cellular level where I'm careful about all my choices. I'm careful about words that I try to use and people that I spend time with, because the clock's ticking and it's ticking in a way that's impacting already people around the world in ways that it's all hands on deck. So for me personally, it's created a deeper sense of urgency to really want to contribute as one who is there to help solve the problem.
Great. I'm going to go to Ignacio for the same sort of question. The mythic ideal of the pristine distance, these untouched, untrammeled places, and yet the knowledge and sometimes evidence that they are right before our eyes being impacted by human agency.
The polar activities in which I've been involved are very extreme in this sense. To put you in context, in the middle of Antarctica or in the middle of Greenland, actually you don't see the change of the jet, because you have 4,000 meters thick layer of ice, and you can see that is disappearing. But the feelings you have, the first one is responsibility, since you are the first one crossing the most pristine area in the earth, because you are. We were, for instance, the first expedition, we were crossing what is called the inaccessibility area, and we reached the inaccessibility pole. So you feel that you are at the end of the world, and that you are the first one crossing that area. So responsibility is one of the feelings. Then you are worried because you are worried about whether you are the one disturbing that environment, because you are the first one crossing. So that is also a strong feeling. Another one is a little bit of a sadness, because unfortunately you discover, because we carry out different scientific works in which some of them we collect samples of ice and air in order to find whether there is pollution there. And sometimes we have found that even places that had never been touched by men, they are already polluted by men, because the air is bringing there different substances that come from the agriculture in the United States or in Asia or in Spain, I don't care, but that they reach these places. So that is those are the main feelings you get there.
And Wilson, anything to add to that thing about it's, to me, it's sort of the emotional impact of the pristine, and then this knowledge, at least knowledge, if not evidence, that it is changing in front of you.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I quite agree with this perspective. Is we are the few people have this privilege to reach this kind of area that not that much people have been there, or even the first person to touch this area, and that's why I always mention to recall my mind, to pay attention on this is we are very, very lucky, and we're very fortunate to the first person to reach this area. That's why the social responsibility is very important. And that's why I really want to using my scientific knowledge as well as my photo and my talk to connect people back to this nature content, because nowadays we're quite disconnected. And I believe that the power of the nature, especially this, I can say, put it in this way, is a wilderness concept. It means the untouched imagery, and there's no people disturb this area. It's wilderness, full of wildlife, but they're changing because of our impact on it. And that's why I saw it very alarming in my perspective, especially in glaciological perspective, because according to paper, according to satellite imagery, even my grand fieldwork season to observe all the changing is quite alarming, especially in Arctic region, because they're warming up so quick and everything melting up as well before even the humankind reach this area. So my responsibility, especially all of us as an explorer to reaching this area, is really connect to the public, to draw the awareness, and then to care about our home as in the Earth system, instead of really just stay in the urban without any care about the north and south as well.
One of the questions we always ask is to describe, I used to say describe a typical day, but a typical day is often sitting at a computer downloading data, for 6 hours. So what I'm interested in is really a quintessential day, a day that encapsulates the best of what it is to do what you do. So I'll start with you, Wilson. Not necessarily the best day ever, but the best day that makes a person understand what it is to do what you do.
Yeah, for me, the best day actually on the ice for sure, on the glacier, especially some glacier or ice cap that not that much people have been there. And you're sort of a first or few scientists on the top of the ice and collect the data that can contribute that we don't know very much in this region. And I remember one day I really like it, and always in my mind looping a lot is, in the Arctic region, or both polar regions the same, the sun is, the angle of the sun is a little bit lower compared in the lower altitude. Yeah. So in high latitude, and they always have a lower sun angle. It means that when the sunrise and sunset, and they always have a golden cherry red color. It's amazing because you see, very beautiful, gorgeous landscape without any people, without any wind. It's quiet, and suddenly some wildlife will show up. And then, for instance, I saw Arctic fox in winter form and just pass by, and then they just watching me, and I watching him as well, without any language, but we are communicate each other. So I really believe that this kind of interaction with the nature is pure. We don't harm each other, and we read each other, and we respect each other in the same time that we share the whole environment together as a neighborhood. So this kind of feelings is quite disconnected from the urban setting, and I really want to draw more people to understand not only my favorite day. I mean, the original relationship between human and nature is like this.
Great. Okay, I'm going to go to you, Sunniva. Same sort of question. A day that encapsulates the best sense of what it is to do what you do.
Wow. I feel so privileged to be alive, but nothing makes me feel more alive than a good storm. Where you've taken all your years of experience and understanding how to work in harmony with the cold environments that apparently I've been attracted to for close to 30 years. And you're waking up in this uninsulated trapper's cabin, and you know that the wood piles that you've chopped from the weeks and months prior are there to feed the fire and stoke it so that you've got warmth in the hut. You go outside, you hop on your snowmobile with your expedition mate and your dog running next to you, and you're going out on the ice with a 4-foot-long ice core, and you're drilling the perfect ice core samples for the University Center in Svalbard. And you've collected that very perfect little 1 to 3 centimeter end of the ice core that somebody's going to study for something that most of us can't see unless it's under a microscope. And then we come back to the hut only to find when we turn on the satellite, a message from the head of the Norwegian Polar Institute saying, unfortunately, he can't go out in the field because of COVID and there's no travel. So could we go and see if polar bear N26131, which we have affectionately called Violet, if we could go and see if she actually gave birth. And so we have the GPS coordinates. We come inside, we have a lunch after our ice core. Now we hop on the snowmobile over the ridges, hour and a half, like a needle in a haystack. And we stop on top of a ridge, and we're looking around with our binoculars to see if we see any polar bear prints anywhere, or any sign of polar bears. And sure enough, I look over the edge, and there are tracks running down the edge that look like little baby polar bear paw prints. And sure enough, then we ride the snowmobile around and we find N26131, and she had given birth to 2 cubs. And it's just a privilege to be in the environment that they live and thrive in as the iconic marine mammal of the Arctic, right? A real privilege for us to get this little bit of scientific information, which is normally never given to anybody outside the scientific community. So it feels like we've been given this gift, and we find now this treasure, and now we get to go back and share this with Jon Ors from the Norwegian Polar Institute. And then we find an email reminding us that we have a school call at 7 o'clock at night. So we whip up a little dinner, light our candle, turn on little small lights for ambiance in our trapper's cabin. And now we're connecting with students around the world using Joe's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And it's full circle. It's the feeling of being completely alive, having to take care of everything for your own survival, and feeling so remote and isolated, and yet so connected to everybody through this emotional and deep, passionate experience that we're having that we only want to share with others. And to me, that's like the ultimate day where we are feeling completely relevant.
That's great. Okay, Ignacio, same thing. Not the best day, not a typical day, the best day that makes me understand what it is like to do what you do.
Well, for me would be a day in which nothing has happened regarding the safety of the people. We have our whole body is there, nothing has happened. Then in the polar expeditions, to have a day in which we have done a big distance. We have moved a lot, that we have achieved a good geographical achievement, and that we have passed a huge area that nobody has ever seen, that nobody has ever stepped on, and that you know that you are surrounded by thousands of kilometers where nobody has ever been. And that is a part of that day. Also, if you get some good scientific goals, that you have hunted some knowledge, that is also a very good feeling, to know that you are providing this, as Sunniva was saying, with these samples, and to know that you have captured something that is going to have value in the knowledge of somebody. Then to have a good physical feeling, to feel well, despite the hard conditions, to see that the body is able to stand the conditions and that you feel well. That is also part of a wonderful day. Then to laugh, in those conditions, laugh with your colleagues is great. It's something that it gives you a lot of energy and helps to cure all damages in your spirit, in your body, and that's also. And then I will add that that day will be a day without the obligation of communicate, without having to communicate in real time what's going on, because people nowadays in general don't understand how hard it is to communicate from these environments. It's not just because of only because of the lack of communication of communication network. That is also one of the reasons, but also because you don't have time to do it, and you don't feel like doing it all the time. And now to avoid the obligation of doing it is also part of a good day.
You use the term, I'm just going to stay with you for a second because I love the term, exponential joy. I don't think people, I'm going to say something and then I'm going to ask you to explain this. Urgency is a motivator, need is a motivator, duty is a motivator, but joy is a really powerful motivator. And I do think there is something about this idea of exponential joy that's a valuable recruitment tool for getting people involved instead of duty, instead of obligation, exponential joy. So I just wanted you to talk about why you use that term and what it means to you.
Well, it means that say is like the fuel for the spirit and even for the body. Physically, you feel that you recover all the damage that the environment is doing in your body just because of the joy. And I think it's one of the things that at least if you have the right team, is one of the best prizes, the highest motivations, and you are, and I would say that is exponential because you are putting together the wish of joy of several persons at the same time. And that is very powerful because we all want to have fun, to have joy, and to communicate that to the rest, because we need each other. We are in those situations, in those extreme situations, you need each other a lot, and so you need to give power and to get power from the others, and that joy is one of the fuel of most of the succeed.
I think that's great. Another one of the questions I tend to circle around on is giving each of you the opportunity to ask of another, what is it you'd like to hear from them? You share, not always do we have a group with such common experience. There can be a thematic connection, but there's not often the same physical connection of having had experiences that are so parallel. So I'm curious if there is anything any of you have to ask of any of the other participants? Sunniva?
Yes, what a brilliant question. And I love this sort of layered approach to this. And I so laud the EC50 program for bringing us all together. And, you know, I feel very strongly that the way forward for all of us as explorers and storytellers and artists, with our creativity and our courage and our deep invested interest in protecting the places we get to travel to, is how can we work together? You know, I would want to ask the two of you, Ignacio and Wilson, is there anything that Hearts in the Ice could do as a platform for dialogue around engagement and collaboration and inspiration? Is there anything we could do to elevate the work that you two are doing and help bring your story into our fold? We are, you know, we're partnering with some big entities out there, Polar Bears International, the Jane Goodall Institute, and some other partners. And there are, you know, we're trying to stay in the good story business where we're trying to take people out of climate despair and into hope and inspiration. And your two stories are powerful mechanisms to get people to have what you called, Ignacio, that exponential joy, which to me I equate with flow. It's like when your mind, your body, and your spirit, everything is working in total alignment, you're in that state of flow, and you're about to create a masterpiece or pull off a big expedition project or what have you. And I think that if we collectively can find a way to flow together, then we're far more powerful. And so my question to the two of you, and you don't have to answer it now, is just know that you have a fan over here. And if there's something that I could do to support and elevate what you're doing and your message, I stand on the ready.
Yeah, actually, I think for myself, I really want to emphasize the Inuit people in, Inuit community in Canadian Arctic is really need to draw more public awareness on it. Because first of all, changing climate or climate changing, the frontier of the person to suffer actually is Canadian, or not only Canadian, or indigenous people, especially Inuit community. Because we have a lot of resources or technology to face this kind of environmental changing. But for them, especially in Canadian Arctic, the infrastructure is so limited. For instance, in Hobart, Finn Island, they don't have a hospital, for instance. If any serious illness, they need to fly all the way to Ottawa. It's about 4-hour flight. And then end up, it's a lot of issue in between for the logistic perspective. Yeah, so not only focus on science, but also I really want to pay more attention about the human or the person that live in the Arctic as well, especially the residential area, the resident in the Canadian Arctic. That's why I think we should pay more attention in this area, especially we study on their land and on their homeland.
Yeah, and thanks, Wilson, for that. You know, the real community scientists are the indigenous around the world, yes? Exactly. And we just came back from Cambridge Bay. Our next project will be in the Canadian Arctic. And so there's real value in collaborating on how we elevate the stories and the voices of those on the front lines and those with the real wisdom. And so let's connect later on that, because for us, the importance of elevating the wisdom that exists in the Canadian Arctic is putting a little bit more funding into the community science aspect of what's happening in the Arctic, in the Canadian Arctic. And that will in turn affect policy, and that will in turn build better infrastructure in terms of food security and connectivity resources and housing and all of the things that they're experiencing as challenges. So I just wanted to add that is, that's our takeaway from our 19 months in the Norwegian Arctic, is that we need to now build a foundation to elevate the real story and the powerful connectivity that exists in the wisdom of the Inuit and the indigenous. So thank you.
I was just gonna throw to Ignacio to see if he had any questions to form for the other members.
More than questions, I wanted to thank your offering, of collaboration. Now, I cannot think suddenly in something concrete, but I'm sure that there are some fronts that could join our works, and I would say that some of them could be in the I don't know very well how to explain this, but I can see like different links in a value chain of exploration. I think our project is in some of them, probably in the beginning of the chain, in the design of the project of exploration, but we are missing many other links behind that. And I think that you understand, the good thing of you is that you understand our project, which is not easy, because most of the people, they don't understand where we are, where this is taking place, or what we do. And you are, I think, very good in links that we are very poor in all the part of communication, storytelling, engagement of the people. And I'm sure that there are things that of good value that we could do together in that sense.
Yeah, because to be honest, I really would like to ask a question about for two of you is or three of you, as how can you deal with the fear? Because for instance, when I work in the frontier, or all of us work in the frontier, some uncertainty always come up, and then you always get a fear situation that you're scared and you don't know how to cope with it. And do you have some situation like this, and how can you manage this? Because I believe that the young explorer or some people that want to become a frontier of unknown to enter in both polar region, they will sort of deal with some fear, especially when they departure, when they get the preparation. And how can we deal with this kind of feelings?
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Ignacio first. I suspect there's a
very
lot
good.
of fear.
That's a very
I know
good
you have
point.
polar bears too, but let's start with Ignacio.
Well, that's a very good point, Wilson. By my method, when I'm very scared, I got a lot of fear, either during the preparation or even during the expedition, is to focus on working a lot, on working on moving forward a lot. If I got fear during the preparation, I work more on preparation. If I have to be without sleeping, I don't sleep, but I keep on preparing myself so that I keep my mind busy, and also I am giving value, and I am solving part of that fear instead of getting blocked. To take the decision of moving ahead. Don't think anymore about the fear, and work. Don't try to keep calm without doing anything, because that is and the same thing during the expeditions. If there is something a very bad situation, try to say, well, let's if the sled totally breaks and we're in a very bad situation, instead of getting blocked, or in that moment I think that to fix it is impossible, or whatever, I go out and I start fixing it and using all the time trying to fix, even though in the beginning I thought that it was not impossible. But you keep busy and you keep moving forward.
Sunniva?
I have no one-size-fits-all answer for this. Fear to me is something that resides typically more in the intellectual side of our brain. But when it starts to fester into your emotional being, it paralyzes you. And that's usually a bit of a wake-up call for something that needs a little realignment or retuning, whether it's a decision you made or a place that you're in that you feel you shouldn't be in. I've had many times when I have felt fear and been extremely afraid. And I feel like I have finally tuned my sort of intuitive side, where that drives me to either fight or flight, right? I'm either going to react or do something, or I will leave, get out of the situation. But it's a very interesting thing as it relates to moving a project forward, because what we did early on with Hearts in the Ice is something I'm even doing personally for myself today is, what do I value? And if I value, key things like community and courage and integrity and transparency, and if I have certain values and I'm standing in alignment with those values, if fear creeps in, I kind of tell it, you know what, I have really no room for you right now. I have some work to do. And so I redirect it, because it's always there to keep us on our toes. And it's a very healthy thing, I think, fear. But we need to have it move in sort of harmony and alignment with what we're trying to get done, so that it doesn't paralyze us. And so what I would say to you right now, Wilson, is you are far more important than you might imagine. And I think that's the very thing that I'm trying to share with people, is that we are all so important and have a huge role and shoes to fill here. And, the more we work together, the stronger we are.
I would just say, when you think of fear, there's sort of two kinds of fear: panic and dread. Panic is that spike, right? And panic, you deal with almost like yoga. Your body is in panic. You breathe as if so to counter panic, you have to do body things, breathe differently. You're literally forcing your body to not act as if it is panicked, so that you can go to the next step and begin to address what is happening. That's almost like a yoga thing. It's a body thing. Panic. Dread is an intellectual thing. It's like, this is getting bad, and it's getting worse, and it's bad. Dread, I think you address through action. Okay, before this gets as bad as I think it could get, we're going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and that's action. Those actions remove the fear, because your focus goes to the action, and you're basically going, look, I'm going to make this as good as it can get based on what I think could happen. This is as good as it's going to get, and that's as good as it's going to get. I've had situations where, like, if this goes badly, we could get frostbite. But that's as bad as I think this will get, because we've done this, and this, right? We're not going to die. We could get frostbite. That's going to be bad. Like that. Like, you're starting out with, our equipment's not here. We have horses, saddles, saddle blankets, and what we had in our saddlebags. That's what we have, right? So we're using everything we have to not freeze to death. That's the goal. And that's how good it's going to get. Less than freezing to death. That is how good it will be. Not better than that. That's how good it's going to be. I know that now. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're doing. If this keeps getting bad, we do these 5 things, we will not die. Like that, right? But at least that's better than nothing, right? Simply dwelling in the moment. That's my piece of advice. You distinguish between these two. One is inside your body, you deal with panic. Outside your body, you deal with dread by taking action, preparation, and defense. That's my simplest thing. So the Explorers Club 50 program itself is an attempt to infuse the Explorers Club with a new kind of energy by bringing in a new generation, but also new types, new channels of exploration, new people. And the shift in how conversations happen, what conversations are about, who sees what, who's doing the looking, who's doing the talking, all of that affects change. We decided with this program to come at that, not in a quantitative way, like we need more of this, we need more of that, but rather in a qualitative way. Let's readdress the very definition of exploration itself so that it naturally brings in alternative types of people who we might not first have thought of. So I'm curious for each of you, just what your hopes are for the Explorers Club and the Explorers Club 50 program as we go forward. And I'll start with you, Sunniva.
Thank you for this opportunity to share what my hope and vision for the EC50 is. And it's what we're doing right now. I think there are so many reasons for me personally to have hope in a world where we're at war. We have all sorts of disasters all over the place. And quantum social change, which is what Hearts in the Ice stands for, and that's a biggie. It doesn't require us to wait for some remarkable leader or hero to introduce solutions that are going to save us, right? It's about each of us on this call acting right now within our own dynamic sphere of influence and context to generate new patterns, new ideas, and new relationships. And that is what I feel is next for this younger generation and new EC50 explorers that come into the fold, is to ask the idea of what is next. And I come up with a couple of key words that I feel are important as explorers, and that's collaboration, inclusivity, compassion, and respect for the diversity that we all are, curiosity around not just our natural world, but each other as humans, and creativity so that we can all be more useful together as explorers. And I would like to say to the youth out there, don't be satisfied with what you see. Do things differently, ask the big, bold questions, and then see how we can actually bring a little bit more wisdom and harmony to the world, in a way where we're all working towards that end. And I feel like the EC50 is an amazing platform for us to continue to reach out across the lines of geography and really stretch a hand down if somebody's given you a hand up, and vice versa. Maybe stretch your hand up to someone that you would like to hold you up.
Ignacio?
Well, before this conversation, I was thinking a little bit about that, because this motivated me, to think about this, and I come back to that idea that I said before of the chain. I see, probably because of my professional mind, I see like a value chain in exploration, and the EC50, I think is the big value of it is that is putting together many different links of the chain, different, some of them similar, but I think that one main thing that the Explorers Club should do with this is to make clear which are these links in order to be more in a more ordered way within this chain, and with that we all see the whole chain, and we will be placed, each of us, in the right link. Some of us will coincide in the same links, and we will be able to make alloys. Alloys is the word in English. Strong alloys that are better than a single metal put together, but we will be useful always. We are in the right link, making that alloy, and that is my vision of this. And now I think we have many links. We have a lot of richness there, but we are going to grow a lot, right? Because we are already 100. Now another 50 are coming. So I think that we need that order and to put that on the table.
And Wilson?
Yes, for me, my main focus actually, or my hope, is really using our platform to inspire more young generation explorer. And this is really my focus point, because when I work in Baffin Island or in Canadian Arctic, we to be honest, we don't have that much scientists or fieldwork assistant, even the field guy as well, because the rest of landscape is so big and we don't know that much area very well. So next generation, we should educate, inspire, and to ignite them to come all the way to explore this unknown of this frontier. And that's why I asked this question about the fear, because most of the young generation, they still fear to make the first step. Because for sure, for instance, one subtropical boy like me from Hong Kong, you need to ask them to go Antarctica. It's it's very dangerous and very scary things to make a decision like this, especially you don't know this area very well. So that's why our platform can really set a role model that different kind of background people or a person from different kind of region, different kind of social status, and they still can become explorer. Everybody can become explorer. That can contribute our society and even the community and everything. And that's why, and I really want to using this platform as well to reconnect the relationship between human and nature as well. So the young explorer, they will connect to the nature, not only just stay in the urban setting or just stay in the virtual world, but they come all the way to the polar region or tropical region to explore the things we don't know, that we connect people together to become a bigger community members in total. Yeah.
Well, I would like to take both my personal opportunity and an opportunity on behalf of the Explorers Club to thank you all for the incredible work that you do and for taking the time out of that work to spend with us today in this conversation. It's always a tremendous privilege for me to be able to sit with our members and to have these conversations and to hear so much about the depth and the passion and the expertise that is being applied by so many people around the world. And you guys are exemplary. We're fantastic conversations. So I thank you very, very much for that. And I know you're busy, so we're going to let you go.